Hello and welcome to Africa News. It's International Women's Day and it's time to take stock where we are in terms of women's participation in decision-making processes or parity in politics. Are women more protected against violence? And where are we with female leadership? These are the topics we'll be discussing with DRC's First Lady Denise Nyakeru Tshisekedi. Hello there. You are the chief of the foundation that bears your name, which fights against gender-based violence. Before getting to the heart of the matter, let's talk about the coronavirus pandemic, which has affected many and killed millions around the world. You worked as a nurse for many years. Had the pandemic happened 5 years ago, you would have been working alongside infected people, and you would have been on the front line. But tell us how you're experiencing this pandemic and its consequences.
Mais sinon, comment vivez-vous cette pandémie?
I'm going through this difficult period like everyone else. I've lost those close to me and loved ones, but I'm confident in the future. Thanks to the solidarity from Africa, we will overcome this pandemic. The pandemic, yes, but the pandemic caused by coronavirus affects the whole world and the entire population. But healthcare workers are most at risk from the disease. As a former caregiver, I imagine the sacrifice that caregivers make to cope with this disease. I have a lot of admiration for those women and men who save lives by putting their own in danger.
The UN Women Agency has decided this year to celebrate female leadership and its incredible efforts in pandemic management. How did you see or perceive this involvement by women?
For me, women working in the health sector, that's to say nurses, caregivers for the most part, are women who've taken and continue to take enormous risks. They're out there to protect others. Their involvement is remarkable. I've not forgotten those who, despite the pandemic, have shown exemplary courage in running their household. What to say about those who, because of COVID-19, stimulated innovation and ingenuity in health, and those who've contributed enormously to raising awareness of barrier gestures. It is thanks to everyone's defence, thanks to our resilience, that we have faced the disease and are going to overcome it.
There
are very few women when it comes to leadership or in positions of responsibility. Some people think quotas should be imposed, like in Rwanda, South Africa, who already have them for the National Assembly. Should quotas also be used in the DRC?
Acting for causes and the education of young girls is key to having a much larger pool of quality women. Regarding and appealing to the efforts of the government in terms of who introduced free primary education, I've dedicated an entire axis of my vision of the highest numbers to education, especially that of young people, with particular emphasis on the education of girls and women in science and engineering technology and mathematics. Scholarships from my foundation are awarded to finalists of the BAC in order to contribute to the creation of a female elite of tomorrow. Then there's the implication of laws. A courageous consensus must be found to implement them. For example, we have reached an important percentage of 17% of women in the past government, a first in the DRC, and a big step for an emerging democracy, or one which can do better, and we have to do better.
Congolese Nobel Peace Prize winner Dr. Denis Mukwege is known around the world for his work healing female victims of violence. And I believe you visited his hospital. During this time, what did you learn from these women?
At Panzi Hospital, I visited female survivors of sexual violence. I was very moved to discuss it with them. It just reinforces my commitment to fight against these atrocities. At the Panzi Foundation, I spent a moving time with the victims and children born out of rape. Seeing their pain turned into hope within the structure touched me. The work of the fight against sexual violence in my country and in Africa in general, it requires all our involvement. Each of us, wherever we are, can make a contribution.
Let's talk about what your foundation is doing to prevent violence against women, since the figures are quite worrying, especially since the first 6 months of last year. 26,000 cases of sexual violence were registered, according to the UN, an increase of 28% compared to 2019.
In 2019, I agreed to carry out a global advocacy role with the United Nations on the issue of preventing conflict-related sexual violence. I also agreed to carry out that of the United Nations Population Fund with regard to the fight against GBV and the promotion of the empowerment of women in the Democratic Republic of Congo. With this title of champion and ambassador respectively, I work to accelerate change, spread advocacy and awareness on the issue of sexual violence while respecting the voice of survivors. I encourage political will and their commitment at the highest level. Several actions have been carried out since March 2019. These include awareness-raising meetings that I organise with young people from different provinces of my country to discuss, for example, issues such as positive masculinity.
So we're talking about violence against women, who are the main victims in conflict zones. We know that the east of your country is a very sensitive area. For example, the recent drama experienced with the assassination of the Italian ambassador and his Congolese driver. It's not strictly speaking in connection with sexual violence, but this is a matter of concern. Is this harmful environment likely to further destabilize your fellow citizens? I would like to know your perspective on this.
There's been much emotion after this drama. My condolences to the families of the deceased. I had the opportunity to offer my condolences in the company of the head of state to the widow and children, as well as to a small Italian community. It's a tragedy that we deplore.
Thank you for joining us on Africa News. Stay with us for more news from the continent.